Now on the line. Thank you so much for making the time this morning. Firstly, let's clarify your role as a communications consultant and what you call a spin doctor. Have you worked with the CR campaign previously?
No, I haven't. I attended one meeting for about an hour to discuss an advert. That was my sole involvement. I wasn't paid for it, but other than that, I wasn't involved in the campaign at all.
You say that the presidency seems to be losing the PR battle, and those with access to the 188 pages of bank statements consistently define the public narrative. How will this drive matters going forward?
Well, you can hear from the way the DA is making mileage out of this that it's become a huge political issue at a time when the president and the presidency really need to focus on the state of our economy, dealing with unemployment, sorting out SOEs. So my argument is that this needs a very strong intervention to get it out of the way, to clarify exactly what happened, who received funding, where the funding came from, what it was spent on, but also to clarify that every political party in South Africa does this. It's not exclusive to the ANC. Even within the ANC, there were different factions who were fundraising. So it's not an unusual situation, but what's making it unusual, and I think concerning for the public, is the lack of transparency and the lack of accountability. So my argument is that it is much broader than a PR issue, but to deal with it from a public relations point of view, the best thing right now would be for the presidency to face the nation, to take the nation into their confidence, and to explain exactly what was going on and why, and to put it in context, and if possible, get some of the people who funded the campaign to explain why they did it. Because you remember, Desiree, this happened more than 18 months ago, and the sort of the toxic effect that it's having on our politics is just going to continue until there's clarity from the side of the presidency and the CR17 campaign team.
How will the president achieve the political management, though, with what is seemingly an unrelenting public protector and also the fragmented environment in his own party?
Well, in the world of work that I do, there's very often a comprehensive strategy that's developed that includes the legal strategy, which we're seeing playing out in courts and in discussions with the public protector. It also has to include political mobilization. I would have expected to see more ANC structures coming out in support of the president. We've seen the Eastern Cape and KZN come out, but from a political management point of view, we need to get the impression that the ANC is fully behind the president on this and sees nothing unusual about it. And then alongside a political and legal strategy, there needs to be a PR strategy that keeps the public informed. Because at the moment, the presidency is in a reactive mode. They're responding to the sort of drip feeding of information that's coming out from selected journalists and from people who seem to have an agenda of their own. The best thing to do from a PR point of view is to get on top of the story, to find the narrative, and as I say, take the nation into your confidence. Now, there's a possibility that the president will do that in Parliament tomorrow, but it needs more than that. I think it needs the campaign team itself to get out there, to do press conferences, to be on social media, and to really drive the narrative in a way that explains this issue and builds confidence and is convincing, because that seems to be missing at the moment.
Do you reckon that the kind of responses he's already given do not suffice? In relation to his responses, you say it's one thing to be right, but another to be seen to be right. Which way can he come out of this morass?
Well, I think more assertively. As I say, the presidency and the CR17 campaign team are coming across as reactive. It's like they're putting out fires. And that doesn't create a very convincing state of mind among the public. So it really is about being more assertive, taking control of the narrative, and getting it out on as many platforms as possible, and getting endorsement from people, getting them to say, we believe you, we are convinced by your argument, and we don't see a problem with what has been going on. It's a distraction. It's obviously been developed by people who want to divert the president from focusing on corruption, and dealing with the economy, etc. So if it's a distraction, the best thing to do is to take hold of it and to stop it being a distraction and to deal with it properly.
He seemed to be going on and continuing with government work yesterday. He was presiding over the President's Coordinating Council, and as you say, he'll be in Parliament tomorrow. Aren't these activities messages in themselves that we're continuing with the work of government?
This morning, and you're trying to focus on sorting out air or dealing with unemployment, and you've got this noise coming from your detractors, which in my view is noise that you can manage. So I'm saying, yes, the business of government must carry on, and it is carrying on, but let's get this issue out of the way. Let's deal with it properly. Let's clarify exactly what happened and why it happened, and provide some transparency and accountability on every single platform, because it's not sufficient, in my view, to say it in Parliament and think the entire country has heard it and the entire country believes it. There needs to be a much more vigorous program of engaging with the public and engaging through the media to tell the story as often as possible, as consistently as possible, to as many people as possible.
Chris, as a professional who's able to measure responses, what is your sense of the South African public's response to this story? Because on one hand, you get the sense that people are happy to be engaging with this content and want to know more. Do you get that sense as well, or do you feel like South Africans want to deal with other issues?
Well, I don't think we are a homogenous society in terms of how we view even the President of South Africa. I think there are people who want him to succeed and to continue with the work that he's doing, but there are people who want to take him out. Inside the ANC, there are people who want him out, and in the opposition political parties, there are people who want to take him out. And I think that's something that we have to bear in mind. He's never going to convince all South Africans. That's an impossible task. But I think the challenge is to convince people and bring back on board, people who have believed in the president's ability but are starting to wonder about whether that fundraising campaign 18 months ago was run according to good governance, whether the money was audited, whether there are explanations for what was done. It's a massive cloud hanging over a presidency which is generally doing good work to turn around the situation in South Africa. And I'm saying get that cloud out of the way so that we can focus on the other issues.
Why did you choose not to continue with the CR17 campaign in terms of further engagements?
Well, I think it's an invitation-only process. I don't think it's something that you volunteer for. They have a team. It's a very highly skilled team. I run my own consultancy. I have a lot of work to do anyway. I also did work, you might remember, on a campaign for Toto Sekhwali a few years ago. And it's incredibly complex. And I think, you can have one person in there focusing on reputation management, but there are a huge number of other issues in terms of stakeholder engagement, getting branches on board, etc. I don't know if I would want to do it again, to be honest, because it is incredibly demanding, and you never really have a sense of where it's going. It's very fluid.
Quite a contradiction, though. You say it's a highly skilled team, yet they seem to be challenged by this development.
But you also know how this works. I mean, you can have a good team of reputation managers in one corner, but in the other corner you've got legal advisors, in another corner you've got the political decision makers at Luthuli House. And I think that's one of the challenges, is for the reputation team to make their voices heard and to set the tone in dealing with the court of public opinion. Let the lawyers deal with the court of legal processes, let the political team deal with mobilizing support. But the reputation managers have to have a say, they have to be heard, and the decision makers have to say at some point, okay, you're right, I think we need to get out there and push a more robust and a more assertive reputation management strategy. But it's complex, there are different pressures. I also keep hearing that there's information that we don't know about yet, which has the potential to be leaked into society. That poses more legal challenges, more political challenges, and more reputational challenges, all of which have to be borne in mind in developing a way forward.
How do you think he is strategizing to deal with the opposition in Parliament tomorrow?
Well, hopefully he's going to address the nation and not deal specifically with what the opposition is saying, because I think it's a national issue that we're all interested in. But I think facts and figures are going to be important. I think conversations around The governance processes that we used are important. And dealing with this notion that people or the president are somehow captured by funders. So did the funders, when they put money in, say, okay, in return, I'd like to be appointed Minister of Small Business, for example, or I would like to be involved in shaping economic policy. I think the president needs to provide assurances, if this is possible, to say there were no strings attached to this funding. They were supporting a project to put a particular kind of president in place, and this is the kind of president that I am, and I can assure you as a nation that there are no strings attached to this funding.
Have you been surprised as a PR professional how much this conversation has grabbed the nation? You're also said in your tweet that government should guide the national conversation. What should be the big issues of the big topics of conversation at this moment?
Well, I think the issues that most South Africans are concerned about are the state of the economy, because it impacts on job prospects, it impacts on job security, it impacts on the future of all of us. So I think, it's a very famous line, but it's about the economy, stupid. And I think that we need to be getting the assurance that there are solutions being developed around Eskom and the other state-owned companies, that there are plans in place to prevent any further retrenchments of jobs or job losses, and that there are plans in place to create more jobs, particularly for young South Africans. I think that is the messaging that needs to come out. And to some extent, it can overshadow this noise around political party funding. The noise will always be there and needs to be dealt with, but we do need a stronger set of messages coming out from government of what is being done to deal with the fundamental problems in our society, such as inequality, unemployment, and the fate of young South Africans in particular.
Chris Vick, we could talk to you about this for days on end, but thank you so much for making the time this morning. Chris Vick is a communications consultant and calls himself a spin doctor. What do you make of that conversation? Let us know at the agenda_SABC.